is that a copy of the Castlevania collection for the Evercade? Does that have a logo from Konami at the bottom? What's that other one? Is that Phantasy Star with the logo from Sega? Are you telling me the Sega Corporation and Konami, they're cooperating with Evercade to reissue these classic games on a new console? No. These are fan-made cartridges on a YouTube channel called Pop Pixel. What this guy has figured out is what the vast majority of consumers have remained blissfully unaware of. The fact is that what Evercade is selling you that appears to be a cartridge is nothing like a classic cartridge. It's much more like a blank USB stick onto which you can write any data at all.
I looked up the serial number on the chip, right? And I looked up the spec sheet. And what I had found was, let's move you up a little bit now so you can see. Now, maybe some of you recognize this, maybe you don't. It says it's flash memory, but this is essentially the same 8 pinout as a micro SD card.
Well, it seems to me that if I'm going to open some of these boxes, I might as well do an unboxing, as they say. I think there's already a rip in the wrapping here. I think they made every single strategic decision incorrectly in terms of how these things are packaged and what comes with them. These cartridges, contrary to popular belief, are no different from a rewritable USB stick. So it looks like you get a poster there. Yeah. It is what it is, homie. This has not brought back the golden age of the Neo Geo shock box, as they used to call them. This is certainly not even comparable to collector's editions these days, but, I feel like they neither really embrace the high-end product strategy nor a low-end. And as I was saying briefly, most people imagine that what's inside this is the same thing that you're going to get in a Sega Genesis cartridge or a Nintendo cartridge, old-fashioned 8-bit Nintendo. So that's get very little inside the box of the television. Just the pamphlet. No extras. No feelies, as they used to say. Remember that term from classic video games? Feelies. Used to get a little decoder ring or some shit inside the box, or an action figure or something. But anyway, inside this, it's not a ROM. It's not a circuit board. Technologically, you're buying data on rewritable media, fundamentally no different from and no better than a USB stick.
The average consumer only started to figure this out when they were updating their software on the Evercade Versus. So if you don't know, Evercade Versus is the plug-in conventional console that attaches to a TV set and has controllers as opposed to the handheld system. When you use the Evercade Versus, you don't just update the operating system. You don't just update the firmware or the software within the console itself. You also update and overwrite the data that's on the cartridges. So people have started to raise one eyebrow and wonder at the long-term viability of this project. Now, I can't rely on anonymous statements from anonymous people on the internet, but I can rely on my own direct experience. Some people on the internet say that updating the firmware for the system causes the system to crash. That happened to me. Some people say updating the software on a cartridge causes a cartridge to crash, causes a cartridge to become unplayable, causes the software to become corrupted or misbehave. That also happened to me. I directly experienced both of those things before I sent my Evercade console back for a refund. What I haven't experienced is the long-term rot of the data. If you look on screen, here's someone describing it. I don't know how common that is. I don't know with the passage of time how common that will be. I didn't own the system for long enough to report on any long-term problems because both the system and one of the cartridges became impossible to use in a remarkably short span of time. This is the reply I received from Evercade. This is the only reply I have ever received from Evercade after sending them a detailed description of the problems I encountered. Now, most Americans have very, very high expectations for customer service. What do you expect them to do? Do you expect them to send you a free cartridge if your cartridge stops working? Do you expect them to send you a free console if your console stops working? Quite possibly just due to software issues, software problems that you are just as powerless to repair as hardware problems. Do you expect them to provide you with free replacements 6 months from now? 6 years from now? Even if they are generous now, when do you think the generosity will stop? Nobody thought in the 1980s that this sort of cartridge was an ideal that we would in the future look back on and aspire to recapture. But when you bought a cartridge in the 1980s, you were buying data written in a form that could potentially last forever. It was immutable and unchanging. When you pay for a digital download from the Nintendo eShop, everybody knows, by contrast, you are paying, in a sense, for nothing at all. These cartridges resemble the old ideal from the 1980s. People buy this and they think that this is what they're getting. But the truth is closer to that. And in a sense, it's worse, because a download from the Nintendo eShop, it will last as long as, and it will be as reliable as, Nintendo as a corporation and that eShop itself. So if you download software from Google, you know you can get a refund as long as the Google Corporation is running the App Store, with Nintendo for as long as Nintendo runs the App Store. But with this, with the Evercade, it's the worst of both worlds, because there is no App Store, and you ain't got nothing but a digital download on a glorified USB stick or SD flash card.
À-bas-le-ciel has like 2,400 videos, I think.